Hello friends, in this video we are going to discover the top 10 worst places to live in the United States. Today, we're going to talk about the worst places to live in the entire country. We might hurt some feelings along the way, and some people will agree with each city. Either way, we did the research, so we know we're pretty darn close. How did we determine the worst places to live in America anyways? Most people would agree with us that bad places to live have a lot of crime, crummy schools, not a lot of culture, and crappy jobs. Basically, we're talking about the cities where you want to avoid if you're looking for a fresh start in life. And if you live in the places we're about to talk about, well, then, you are clearly not going to move away if you haven't left by now. So, good for you. The cities below all share those qualities. There might be some surprises on this list, but when you look at the unbiased data, it's hard to argue against. We had more than 10 million people read our worst cities in a state series, which was featured in hundreds of media outlets, including an NPR feature. So, we know what we're talking about. After analyzing the biggest cities in the country, here is our list of the worst cities to live in America. You might be surprised to see some of these cities on this list. We understand there's a lot of good in every place. However, according to data, which doesn't measure things like beauty, friendly people, and community involvement, there are far better options in America for making a place home. Kindly make sure to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon before we start this video about the 10 worst places to live in the United States. Now let's dig deeper into each of the top 10 worst places to live in the United States. Number 10. Detroit, Michigan. Moving right along on our terrible tour of America brings us to America's favorite punching bag, Detroit. Well, good for you, Detroit, you're not the absolute worst place to live. Detroit has all sorts of issues, particularly with its economy. 1 in 5 people in Detroit is out of work, which is the highest rate in America. And home prices are around $40 or $50,000, which is the lowest rate in the country. You could be an unemployed joker and still afford a house in Detroit. Remember when the entire city of Detroit filed for bankruptcy? The city was slashing jobs, cutting services, and closing parks. They even shut street lights off on many blocks in town. But Detroit is apparently getting better. People talk about a resurgence of jobs, a new attitude, and lower crime rates. While many areas of Detroit are improving, overall, the city as a whole is still doing very poorly. We're all pulling for you, Detroit. Everyone except Cleveland. Population, 672,351. Rank last year, 5, down 5. Unemployment rate, 14.9%, first worst. Number 9. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. In every state, there are both good and bad places to live, and this certainly applies to Louisiana. The factors that determine whether an area is considered desirable or undesirable include crime rates, education, economic issues, and a lack of things for people to do in their area. Baton Rouge is the capital of Louisiana, and it has a population of 225,362. It is a city of two halves, as it has both plus points and negative features. Crime is also a significant problem in Baton Rouge as it is the one of most dangerous place to live in Louisiana. It has one of the highest murder rates in the country. While in Baton Rouge, there is a 1 in 17 chance of becoming a victim of any crime, violent crime or property crime. Other negatives are poor educational opportunities and a lack of diversity in the job market. On the other hand, there are good transport links, the community is diverse, the cost of living is reasonable, and the city has amazing nightlife. Therefore, although it is considered an undesirable place by many, it offers a lifestyle that will suit others. Population, 225,362. Rank last year, 14, up 5. Unemployment rate, 8.7%, 18th worst. Number 8. Brownsville, Texas. Brownsville, Texas really isn't all that great. And if you move there, then you'll know. First off, homes here average $92,400 a year. That's the 8th lowest home price value in the USA. You can judge a city by the cost of the homes there, and when homes cost well under $100,000 a year, that means, well, no one wants to live there. What else makes Brownsville so lousy? Well, unfortunately, the reality of living in a border town means higher crime. Statistically, border towns are far less desirable when you measure quality of life factors. Many Brownsvillians will defend Brownsville, saying it's a diverse place and it's affordable. Plus, there are a bunch of places in Brownsville to get Mexican food, which means, are you kidding me? They have a amarga taco? OMG, we might have to move Brownsville off this list. Guys, seriously. Why is Brownsville on here? They have a Mr. Taco there. Population, 182,230. Rank last year, 4, down 4. Unemployment rate, 6.1%, 70th worst. Number 7. Springfield, Missouri. You've probably seen a coastal snob on TV talk about how the idea of moving to the Midwest sounds awful. And Springfield is the exact mental image people on the coasts conjure up when they think of the Midwest. The place that no one has ever said, "I'm excited to move to Springfield." The overall crime rate ranks as the worst in the country, driven primarily by property crimes. It's a city, but is really just a big town tucked away in rural Missouri without much to do. And home values, as a sign of demand, are some of the lowest in the country for the big cities we looked at, meaning no one's trying to move here. The median income clocks in at $37,491. On the plus side, Springfield has a cost of living below the national average and the weather is pretty mild. And you can always take a day trip down to the Ozarks to pretend you're living that glamorous Langmore life. Population, 167,601. Rank last year, 10, up 3. Unemployment rate, 5.2%, 119th worst. Number 6. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Our next stop is the terrible, terrible city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Actually, Tulsa isn't the worst place you could possibly live, but on paper, it ranks really high as a bad place to live. Here's why. First off, crime is really high. You have a 1 in 16 chance of being robbed and a 1 in 113 chance of being a crime victim here for every year you spend in the city limits of Tulsa. Gang activity probably has something to do with that. Homes are cheap, you can get one yourself for only $143,400. What else makes Tulsa so noxious? It has to be the most boring and stagnant place in America to live, quite honestly. So it's not really a shock to anyone when a story comes out that paints Tulsa in a negative light. People don't get upset and say, "That's not our Tulsa." They usually go, "Yup, that sounds about right." Population, 402,441. Rank last year, 7, up 1. Unemployment rate, 6.2%, 64th worst. Number 5. Cleveland, Ohio. Practically right next door is Cleveland. It ranks as the 5th worst city you can live in America. What makes Cleveland so abominable? Well, the weather here stinks. It's a gray, cloudy, dreary, and very cold place for a majority of the year. They've made an attempt at fixing up the downtown area a bit, but there's still a bunch of downtown that's dangerous and very sketchy. And don't ever get off the freeway in East Cleveland. I did that once to let my dog out to pee and I seriously thought I was going to get shot. Like a block from the off-ramp. And, remember, I grew up in San Bernardino, so I'm tough. On paper, Cleveland is miserable. Cleveland has a 12.42% unemployment rate, which is the second worst in the entire country. It has far below average income levels and the 19th highest crime rate in the country. If you look up Cleveland on forums, you'll see headlines like this. Cleveland is the most depressing, boring place on earth. Why is Cleveland filled with so many negative people? Why do Clevelanders hate Cleveland? Some place called the Economic Innovation Group called Cleveland the most distressed place in the country, citing factors such as a lack of educated, successful people. Did you know a quarter of all Cleveland residents doesn't even have a high school degree? 4 people in Cleveland, that means 25%. Or 1 in 4. And 1 in 5 homes in Cleveland is vacant. Population, 383,331. Rank last year, 6, up 1. Unemployment rate, 12.4%, second worst. Number 4. Beaumont, Texas. Beaumont has been named among the worst cities in the nation for well-being, according to a national survey just released. The Gallup Healthways study is based on phone calls to residents asking them to answer questions about the quality of life in their area. Everything from financial security to work environments, physical and emotional health, and access to healthy food are included in the questionnaire. With a crime rate of 45 per 1,000 residents, Beaumont has one of the highest crime rates in America compared to all communities of all sizes, from the smallest towns to the very largest cities. According to Crime Grade, Beaumont is listed in the first percentile for safety and crime. This rating means that 99% of cities nationwide are safer than Beaumont. For the second year in a row, the Beaumont-Port Arthur area came among the lowest ranked places, 184 out of 189 metro areas. Population, 117,321. Rank last year, 25, up 21. Unemployment rate, 5.6%, 96th worst. Number 3. Shreveport, Louisiana. Our next stop is the terrible, terrible city of Shreveport, Louisiana. Actually, Shreveport isn't the worst place you could possibly live, but on paper, it ranks really high as a bad place to live. Here's why. First off, crime is really high. You have a 1 in 16 chance of being robbed and a 1 in 113 chance of being a crime victim here for every year you spend in the city limits of Shreveport. Gang activity probably has something to do with that. Shreveport is the slowest growing city in America, too. Did you know Shreveport ranks third in the nation for least gender equality? That means the number of men versus women is really low. No wonder homes are cheap. You can get one yourself for only $139,800. What else makes Shreveport so noxious? It has to be the most boring and stagnant place in Louisiana to live, quite honestly. So it's not really a shock to anyone when a story comes out that paints Shreveport in a negative light. People don't get upset and say that's not our Shreveport, they usually go yup, that sounds about right. Population, 189,890. Rank last year, 9, up 6. Unemployment rate, 7.1%, 40th worst. Number 2. Dayton, Ohio. Next up is the seriously unimpressive city of Dayton, Ohio. This city also makes sense to me based on first-hand experience. Dayton is quite a depressing place. Whenever I drive through Ohio, I try and always time my trip so I don't have to stop in Dayton for gas. And it's not the only Ohio city we're going to talk about. If you live in Dayton, this might not be a surprise, but you have the 3 highest crime rate per capita in the country. Every year you spend here, you have a 1 in 20 chance of being the victim of a property crime like a car break-in or home invasion robbery. Plus there were 1,523 violent crimes in the last FBI reporting year. That means if you spent a year there, you'd have a 1 in 100 chance of being a major crime victim. Finally, the folks who live here earn the 3rd lowest salaries in America's big cities at $30,000 a household. That's simply not enough to get by for most folks. People in Dayton need money bad. They'll take anything they can get their hands on: Christmas lights, Ja Rule tickets, even your cracked cell phone. Population, 140,444. Rank last year, 3, up 1. Unemployment rate, 10.3%, 7th worst. Number 1. Memphis, Tennessee. If you were looking for a match and Memphis came across your screen, you would definitely swipe left. Memphis, my friends, needs some real TLC. Here in Memphis, crime is the 3rd highest in the country, and 1 out of 17.7 residents was robbed here according to the latest FBI numbers. That's not the first place you think of making home, is it? Additionally, you have a 1 in 54 chance of being the victim of a violent crime, which includes all sorts of bad stuff. That's really high. When you look at adult education in Tennessee, the folks in Memphis have the 76th highest dropout rate. And other factors that make Memphis undesirable are the low median incomes and home prices. The unemployment rate is the 20th highest in the states, at 8.56%. Sadly, Memphis is a really lousy place to live. Population, 650,910. Rank last year, 1, no change. Unemployment rate, 8.6%, 20th worst. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content of this video, click the subscribe button so you can receive more content like this. Post your thoughts on the top 10 worst places to live in the United States in the comments below. I'd love to read them, and I'm sure others would too.